Hey, and welcome to this. Not just another episode of Work Smarter, Not Harder, but going forward, an episode of Work Smarter, Not Harder with the Design Ninja. And this is your dojo for all of your ninja skills in Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, and more. So, in this movie, what we're going to do is we're going to make some gradient text, a very popular thing on my blog, and I thought I'd make a movie to go along with that. So I'm in a straightforward art and illustration document here in Illustrator CC 2017, and the typeface I'm using there is Colt Black from Typekit. And what I want to do, just in case you're unaware of this, okay, is I want to show you the appearance panel, because type is dealt with in a very unusual way perhaps in Illustrator. There's a separation between the properties that the characters have, that's what they've got at the moment, and the type object itself. And what we want to do here, of course, is maintain our editability. Okay, we don't want to be expanding things to outlines, because if something changes, you need to be able to change it straight away as much as possible, rather than going right the way back and having a complete do-over. So if I just double click on characters here, it actually shows me the fill that is being applied there at the moment. Okay, and you can see above it, it says type, no appearance. I'm going to double click just there, just to take us back to the way this is by default. So I want to remove that fill to the characters, and the way I can do that is, if I look at the toolbox, you can see the fill is in front. If I hit the slash key, then that has gone. Now at the moment I am in preview mode, but if I just tap Command Y to go out into outline mode, you can see there is the text. It is still there. Command Y, of course, Control Y on the PC to go back. Okay, and you can't see it because neither the type object nor the characters themselves have a fill. Great, now we've got that out of the way, we can start to do some fun stuff. So what I'm going to do now is hold down Command and hit slash. That adds me a new fill at the type object level, because you can't apply gradients to text, live text in Illustrator, with the characters themselves. It has to be on a level above. So now I can just go for broke and just add any gradient I want across the text, like so. Now, as it happens, I want to add a kind of metallic color here, and I've got a starter gradient that I can use by going to the loader in this instance of the swatches panel, which handily pops up from that swatch there, and click on that and come down to gradients and then choose metals from in there, and it will give me this panel. The very first one of those is a gold gradient. If I click that, okay, you'll see that gets applied like so. Now I don't think I need all of that kind of shimmer in there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the gradient panel just here and do a little bit of modeling. First of all, I'm going to take that swatch off the end there and take this light swatch up to the end. Then this sort of one on the other end, I'm going to pull that over there. I'm going to drag this stop away from the gradient there, and let's just model that around a bit like so. Actually, do you know what? I might keep the one on the other end, so I'm just going to undo a couple of times until that comes back. This one here, though, I think that needs to be slightly darker. So I'm just going to double click on it. And rather than using RGB, I'm just going to use the little fly out at the top and change that to HSB, and then just pull down the brightness for that just a little bit, just to make it a bit darker, a bit more contrasty. Yeah, I think that's kind of okay. It can increase the saturation slightly as well. Okay, good. Now I've got that, what I'm going to do is tap G to get my gradient tool. So first of all, I'll make sure that I'm not actually in live text. We'll find out in a second. When I tap G, now that's all good. Okay, and then I'll drag downwards like so. That's what I'm after, is to get that gradient running like that. Nice. That is exactly what I'm after. Great stuff. So now what I'm going to do is add yet another fill. So Command on the Mac, Control on the PC, hit slash, and now you get another fill. So this one, I will use the gradient that I loaded earlier on, because it's here in the swatches panel. So if I click that, it will look as if the gradient just changed. But if I turn that off and on again, you can see that it is a completely separate fill on top of the other one. Now I'm going to shrink this in a bit. So I'm going to go to the Effect menu. I'm going to come down to Path and then choose Offset Path just here and turn on Preview so you can see what's happening. And this needs to be a negative amount because I'm going to make it smaller than the previous fill. And you can see that starting to have an effect. In fact, if I push that quite a long way, you can see exactly what that does. But maybe that's a bit too much, but -3 works pretty well for me. So I'll hit OK at that. That's dead handy. So that looks quite nice. Just going to set the bottom off a little bit more. So I'm just going to click on this bottom fill here. And I think actually I'll add a little bit of a drop shadow just there. And obviously I did one of these earlier on, I think, because these settings are more or less good for me. Let's have a quick look at that. Yeah, about 40%, maybe 50%. Let's just bring that up just a little bit. Nothing on the X offset, about 2 or 3 millimeters on the Y offset. Let's go for 3 and let's make the blur about 4 so it's nice and soft. There you go. That's grand. That looks pretty good. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to activate the stroke that's here at the top. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to add a default black to white gradient from the default swatches that I've got here. Okay, and then I'm going to increase the weight of that. All right, and you'll see that the stroke is going from white to black along there. Now that's actually too wide. I'm going to bring that down a bit to about 8 actually is pretty good. Okay, I'll leave that at that. I'm just going to hit return just to apply the extra stuff I've done there. And now I need to go to the gradient panel to change the way this stroke is drawn. Now, if you haven't done this before, I'm going to give you a quick 101 on gradient strokes. And I'm going to just come across to this document here where I have this path and I'm just going to dial up the stroke weight just there. Let's bring that up to about 100 points. That's great. You can see that. Okay, and now I'll just click to apply a gradient to that stroke just here. Now at the moment this is drawing the stroke almost as if it's through an opacity mask really, which you'd find in older versions of Illustrator to do this kind of thing. If I click the next one, what this is going to do is going to apply along the stroke, and that's why I'm using an ellipse here because it's easier to see. Okay, because ellipses begin at this anchor point on the right hand side. So you can see it starts up from white and as it winds around the path it becomes black just on that side just there, just as it is on the ramp here. And the last one is to apply the gradient across the stroke. And if I click that, you can now see that's going from side to side. And if I reverse it like so, and it's a very, very powerful thing to use. So let's go back to this document just here, and I'm going to change this stroke, which is still targeted just here, okay, and get that so it draws across the stroke. Okay, then what I'm going to do is this white color on the left hand side here. I think I'm actually going to reverse these around. So I'm just going to click this reverse gradient widget, and the white, which is now on the right, I'm going to take the opacity for that down to 0% just there. So this goes from black to white that is transparent. I'll just double click on the black one here, and I'm actually going to use this palette. You could use the swatches just by toggling that, but I'm going to use this palette here and just drag around here. I want sort of a dark brown, quite dark. Okay, like so. Something like that I think is just great. Okay, and now that stroke is across there. Let's zoom in on part of this. If I zoom in on this edge just here, you can see the stroke. But now I want to offset that so that it meets this other gradient just here, right? So the second fill. Now I could go back to the effect menu and go to path and choose offset path just there. Okay, but what I'm going to do instead is I've already got the offset path here, okay, on this fill. So I'm just going to hold down the Alt, click on it and hold down the Alt key and then drag that, or Option if you're on a US keyboard by the way, drag it onto the stroke just here, and you'll see it copies that attribute across. So now I've got that and it's given me that nice sort of chiseled edge. I can see a little bit of a highlight in there. It's very difficult because it keeps giving the overlay when I'm going over it, but if you look at the edges, that's not quite convincing enough for me because it's going out to that white. Really, if you want to do this properly, you should have the same color on both ends, but one of them should be completely transparent. But I can get around that in this particular instance by targeting the stroke and going to its opacity attributes and then changing that to multiply. And now when I come away, you'll see that's much more successful just there. Okay, so I've got that. Let me just double check that it didn't change because I didn't have it selected. There we are. Now it's much more successful than it was earlier. I'll zoom back in so you can see that more clearly. There you are. So there's none of the sort of whitish bit inside there. So there you are. That's how we can do gradient text that maintains its editability. You'll see if I double click here and change this to a different letter altogether, right, then that's all good. The only thing I really need to do here now is to add something to set this off. So I'm just going to add a rectangle just here that's at the back. So I'll do that. I'm going to remove the stroke that's on it. So I'll hit the slash key because the stroke is in front. I'm going to tap X to swap the priority so that the fill is now in front. I'm going to use one of my preset gradients here. So I'll just come along here. I've got this one set like so. We can then get that so it covers the artboard or covers the area that we need at any rate. There we go. Now that's done. Let's just zoom out a little bit. Tap G to get our gradient tool and make this a bit more elliptical and stretch that out a bit. And that's it. That's all good to go. Lovely. There you go. Editable gradient text. We've given it a bit of bling for today, and that's it. We are done for now. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Reach out to me via Twitter. Follow my Facebook page. All of those details coming up in just a moment. Do keep on watching. Do spread the word. And until next time, see ya.